Hello there. Welcome to the next episode of Creating an Adventure in Foundry VTT. Last time we looked at the exploration map and the party sheet and how we could set up our exploration activities in that sheet. This time we're going to set up our first encounter in the wilderness. We'll load on our module, our world. Here's the exploration map. We had our characters set up there. I think we'll remove those for now. And if we zoom in by using the mouse wheel and the right mouse button to drag across, the path that leads from Pendaka into the Ashwood Forest runs through a small copse of trees. And we're going to run our encounter in that copse of trees. We'll go to the trusty journal. So we've made some journal entries for exploring Ashwood Forest and some tips for GMs in Foundry VTT for running that. Now we're going to do our first encounter. The copse. And giving the game away, our page within there is ambush. Cutting and pasting from my pen and paper version and doing some editing. When the PCs start their journey, they are on the hex at the west edge of the path. Read the following description. As you travel along the newly built cobbled road to Ashwood Forest, you see the dark green canopy and twisted boughs of the forest looming ahead to the east. Before the path dives into its impenetrable depths, it passes through a small copse of trees. So the PCs would be here, say they've just started the party, and this is the situation they're in. We describe that 3 bandits have laid an ambush for the PCs, hoping to relieve them of the mayor's advance payment for venturing to Grimbone. Due to the topography of the land surrounding the copse where they lie in wait, the bandits will have seen the PCs approach unless they're all invisible, unlikely at first level. Let me just adjust the formatting here. See how the Therefore, if the PCs are seen to hesitate or avoid the copse hex altogether, the bandits will come out of hiding and chase after the PCs. If the PCs enter the copse hex, show the image and move the PCs onto the copse ambush scene. Ask them their habitual marching order. They should already have decided their exploration activities. They see a track heading south off the main road that Johanna had described as leading towards the hovel of the old maid, but before the PCs can decide which route to take, they are ambushed by the bandits. So we need to create another scene, don't we? And this time we're going to do it from scratch in Dungeon Alchemist. So I'll set up Dungeon Alchemist, and that's a sneak preview. We want to create a new map. I generally go for digital unlimited size. In choosing the size, I generally have a mind to what's suitable for running the game pen and paper. So if we wanted to run pen and paper, it's perhaps easier to print out posters for the PCs in 1 inch per square hex scale, 1 inch per square scale, in a format that's A1, A2, A3, A4, etc. So I might tend to choose a map that's width 16 inches by 11 inches high, or vice versa, and then the next level up would be 16 by 23, etc. So 16 by 11, I believe, is A3 format, though I might have got that confused. Yes, I think it's A3 format. Two A4s side by side. So we'll choose forest terrain because we're in a copse, flat, which we might change a little later. We're not having water here. Broadleaf forest and no weather. The only options in Dungeon Alchemist at the moment are no weather or snow. We can add in rain in the Foundry VTT if we want. So we'll create, and this is our random creation. Now I don't quite like the autumn trees mixed in with the green trees, so I think we'll get rid of those. We go into objects and delete those trees, and we'll go into selecting trees and choose some trees. So I think maybe we'll stick with deciduous trees. Got another maple tree there. Make it a bit bigger. Different type of maple tree. An oak tree. Another oak tree. Maybe have one faded oak tree there. Can't have too many trees. Let's have another one. And we can turn them up to the side. I think maybe we've got enough tree density there. Maybe another one there. Another one there. So we want to create a path that's heading kind of across the hex like that. So we'll create a bit of space. And we'll go into the, if you're not familiar with Dungeon Alchemist, this is for drawing rooms. Next one down is objects. Because it's an outdoorsy one, we don't have these yet. And then here is the terrain. So we can paint some terrain. And I think we'll have, we said it was a newish flagstone path, so I think we'll have some flagstones. Let's set the brush strength like that, and the brush size to, maybe we want 2 hexes. So I think two squares, I'm obsessed with hexes. Let's add in view our grid and make it a bit more visible. See, we can just see a faint grid there. I think we need it a bit more visible. Settings, grid, square. Let's make it. We're not, didn't save the changes, sorry. Settings, grid. Bright green. We're not going to use this grid because we can create one in Foundry VTT, but we want to make sure we don't change the zooming or magnification of the image when we port it to Foundry VTT, we're going to have exactly 16 across and 11 up, and we're going to choose a resolution of 150 pixels per square inch. That way, we just turn the grid off here, we'll know that when we set up the grid in Foundry VTT, it will be identical, because this green one looks a bit ugly, doesn't it? But it's going to make it easier for us to see the scale. So we'll do our path. Going across there. We might spruce it up a bit with a bit of mud on the path from all those carts filled with silver and iron on their way to Pendaka from Grimbone over there. And let's go down like this and have more of a look at the path and the trees. So we have the trees kind of not on the path, but maybe a little bit overshadowing the path. Same with the bushes. And trunk, we will sink that, turn collisions off and sink that trunk a little bit. That fallen tree trunk, so it looks like it's kind of been there some time and the earth is covering it very slightly. What have we got here? And I think we need a bit more tree density there, so we'll copy that tree there, rotate it to make it look different. Copy that one there. And we want a path that heads south, don't we? So we'll have that towards the end, towards the east end, so we'll move this here. And we'll have a path heading south. And we'll get rid of that tree trunk. Get that one out of the way. And this will just be a muddy path. So we'll go back into our terrain, paint it, and try this for a sort of dirt path. And it'll be heading down there. Maybe increase the brush strength a bit. And remove things from the path. Too many fallen trees, I think. Too much logging going on. Deforestation. There's another tree there. Make it a bit bigger so it's a bit more asymmetrical, a bit more organic. That'll do this nice path there. So the idea is the PCs will come from Pendaka up there. They have the option to go straight onto the forest or to go down the path towards the old hovel where the Gianna's maid, really Gianna's mother, is living to deliver the letter. And they're going to get waylaid. So I think we've got enough trees there. I think we'll not make it billiard green flat, but let's have a little bit of slight variation in height. I don't think it's likely that we'll see this because we're really doing top down, but we do take pictures. I take pictures sometimes to set the scene for the players to give them a bit more of a view, and so we might see a little bit of topography there. I think we'll have just one more tree. Have one there. Okay, so we've got the trees. Let's add a bit more undergrowth. So in Dungeon Alchemist, these are placing individual objects. We can paint objects, where we paint a whole bunch of them. We've got nature ones. We could paint trees, but I think what we'll be doing is painting forest bushes, and quite densely, just to really make it obvious that it's going to be difficult terrain off the path. So I'll increase the density a bit. We want random size, quite a big brush size, and then we'll get a nice random selection of bushes, hopefully. So there's plenty of undergrowth for sneaky bandits. Ooh, I gave the game away to hide in. You may think that Dungeon Alchemist is overkill because we're creating a 3D environment and just taking a top-down picture. But we're going to be doing some layering and taking some pictures to set the scene. So I think it's worth it. And as you see in Dungeon Alchemist, it doesn't take too long. What else can we do? Maybe have a little bit of moss. No, maybe we are doing a bit overkill. I think that's enough. We're going to then choose the lighting. So we want this will be the shadow length if the sun is on the horizon at dawn or dusk. We have long shadows, but we want it sort of in the middle of the day. Obviously, we don't really know the time of day, but I think it's reasonable just to have it like that. And the sun turning in the sky, so we could, obviously that's going to vary as well, but we'll just have it in a fairly moderate place, and it's going to be fairly brightly lit, so we'll have a nice bright white sunlight. When we do Ashwood Forest, in comparison, perhaps we'll have a sort of greenish tinge to everything to make it seem like you're in the middle of a deep and dark forest instead of a small copse of trees. So I think we've done what I like to do now. We're nearly finished, so shall we save our map? So we'll call it Copse Walkthrough. So I've saved that now. We can go into cinematic mode and take a picture. This is quite a small map. We're going to be a bit stuck with. You can see the brown border of the map straight ahead. We don't really want to see that, do we? And on to the left, so we'll try and pick it. We're going to have to do a sort of top-down thing and zoom in a bit. But that kind of looks okay. So if we can see in a matter of minutes that we've created a top-down map, but because it's Dungeon Alchemist and it's 3D, we can have a nice picture to show the players as well. So we save that as a JPG file, because we're not going to be making it transparent or doing overlays. So we'll escape out of that mode. Now, what we're going to have to do is convert this into a Foundry VTT map, and I'm going to do this in layers. I'm going to have a background layer of the ground and the undergrowth, and then a foreground layer which will be in the form of a tile of the trees. So it'll create a nice effect where the tokens will be moving under the trees but over the undergrowth. One way to do this would be to delete, have it save another version and delete all these trees, and then have a bare layer and another layer on top. But I find it looks better if you just leave the whole thing as the layer underneath and then have the tiles on top of that. Perhaps it's a bit counterintuitive, but you don't get such a sharp and artificial transition between tiles and leaves, tiles and background. After all, when I come to cut out the tile and have the transparency, I'm not going to be able to cut out individual bits surrounding leaves. So I'm thinking we can get away with just saving this and then seeing what we can do in picture editing software to create a tile out of just the trees. Then at some point we will look at the locations of the bigger trees and perhaps mark in where there would be blockages of movement and sight with the tree trunks. So I think that's enough in Dungeon Alchemist for now. I'm going to transfer the files that we saved into a suitable form for Foundry VTT now. So we'll do File, Export. Just an image. We could export it as a video, but it takes up a lot of space, and we're going to see the trees swaying and not much else. And I think it might be better just to save it as a picture. As you saw from previously, you saw that I'd created a video of just a section of the docks to have the water moving. I don't think we need to do this. Also, we would probably want to create the video, if we were going to do that, in the tile section, and then I don't have the software to have a transparent video as I would for a transparent static image. We want orthographic top-down. If we get perspective with 3D walls, it looks very nice, but you get a lot of distortion when you've got a grid and you're using the tokens. And even when you have the orthographic top-down mode, there is still a little bit of distortion on a large map. And that's something to bear in mind. If you have a very large map, the rooms at the edge of the map tend to have the outer walls showing a bit more, and the inner walls, those closer to the centre, are angled a little bit less. I don't bother with the lighting. If you want to do a very quick port to Foundry, it will actually port any lights that you have, and even have a go at walls, but I don't use that. They get saved as a JSON image. I do it manually. And we want 150 dpi, and we want to remember that. We want no borders, and we want the grid off. So that should be saved. And we can exit Dungeon Alchemist now. So what I want to do now is just transfer the images that we created into our module folder for a Strife and Grimbone walkthrough. So let's go to our Scenes tab. We've got Chapter 1 Pandaka Dock and the Vrisia map, Chapter 2 Ashwood, so far just the exploration map. We'll add in another scene, Copse Ambush. Right click and configure it. So our background image, modules, walkthrough module, assets, scenes, and then our grid. So we'll have our grid size 150 pixels per square inch. Square grid. We can change the strength of the grid, but I know we're going to need it a little bit thicker. We don't need any padding around the outside. And token vision and fog exploration, yeah, it's going to be daylight though. Let's just save it and see what we see. activate it to look at it. So there's our copse ambush scene. You can see that the grid is not that visible, but you can see, well, let's make it a bit stronger. So for the purposes of showing you guys, let's make it a bit thicker, and maybe you can see there that it's all looking perfect there. But we need to create a tile layer for the trees, don't we? So what we'll do is we'll now manipulate this image in a photo editing software. I just use the free paint.net Windows own one. So I'm now in paint.net, and I'm going to open my file, and we have it here. So what I'm going to do now is create a transparent image as a WebP file, and the way I do that is to get rid of all this low-lying stuff. I use the lasso select tool, and I can trace around the trees. So what I think is above the players' heads, the PC's heads. Don't want to bite off more than I can chew, so I'm going to go here, and for now I think I'll just content myself with taking this chunk out for now. You don't need to be that accurate, you can see, because I'm not being that accurate. So I've taken a good chunk out now, press delete. And I've got another little bit here, I think. Right to the edge there. A little bit there. That's not right. We're just deleting what I've already deleted. Let's need to drag the zoom in a bit. I'm using my mouse wheel to drag in this piece of software. So we want to create one here. And I think what we will have, whoops, zoom out a bit. We do have a path, so I think we will create a little bit in the middle of the path where one can see. And we have this path going south. And this is open here. So I don't know how many have used paint.net, but it's nice price, i.e. 0, and it does what I need. If you want to just do a bit of manual rubbing, go into the eraser tool, pick a brush size that's maybe 30 or something, and you can do some erasing there. So if there's any sharp edges, maybe that slightly gentler edge there. So, and maybe around that one there. So that's our tile. So we need to save this as a WebP to keep the transparency. Copse walk through trees. So I'm going to save it in my normal folder. It takes a while to convert something to WebP, but it's supposed to be quicker once you've loaded it on, for the players to have it downloaded onto their computers when you're playing. So that's done. We go to the tile controls, pick foreground, and then we should change the configuration to make the foreground elevation 20 feet. I think that's probably good for trees. You probably need to be 20 feet up into the air before you could expect to be above the tree canopy. So we're happy with that. And set the foreground, as I said, and then tile browser, and then we see here this, and because we didn't zoom in, it didn't expand or shrink or change the resolution, this should hopefully match, and we can even put the snap to grid so that we should be able to just drag it on, hopefully. And there we are. So because it's a perfect match, it doesn't really look any different, does it? But we'll see from the tokens that there is a difference. Who should we choose? I think Meriziel is very good at sneaking around under trees. And so we'll move Meriziel now. And she's disappearing temporarily under the trees. We still need to set the tile settings. See that temporarily? So we'll go back into the tiles, select foreground layer, double click, and I think what we will do is make the tile always visible, but we'll have some opacity so they can see underneath. I think it looks a little bit artificial if you just have a little ring around the PC, the token, where they can see perfectly. So we'll set the tile opacity to maybe 0.6, and occlusion mode is always visible, it doesn't occlude. So do you see the occlusion modes? You can fade the entire tile. Well, there's no point in that. You can have a radial one where you just see clearly a little bit around the token, and the rest is obscured. I think I'd like it always visible, and we can change the elevation there. So let's see what Meriziel experiences now. See, she's sort of misty under the undergrowth. So that's enough just to give the impression to the players that they're in the forest rather than floating on top of it. But still enough that it's practical, that you can still see the tokens quite easily. And it's going to make it clear to the players that also this is going to be difficult terrain. We'll say anywhere where there's shadow, that'd be difficult terrain. Of course, if Meriziel went up 10 feet up into the air, she's still going to be under the canopy here. But if she goes, I'm right clicking, 20 feet up into the air, she's now above the canopy of trees. There's no shading. So you can clearly see a character that is on the ground versus one that's above the trees. So we've done our tile layer, and don't necessarily need to do drawing tools, do our walls. So we don't have any walls here, but we do have trunks of trees. and we'll use terrain walls, and what I will do is create just a little round area for the trunk of a tree. So I'm pressing Control. We don't want snap to grid on. Whoops, though we seem to have it on. Yeah. So we created a little area there, select it, and copy it, and then and we've got 4 wall objects, so we grabbed all 4 of them, and then we'll just put them there where we imagine trunks of trees to be. So that's enough there. We'll get rid of our sample one. So now, if we bring back Meriziel, and we select her, you can see some fog of war and a bit of shadowing, and sometimes there's a blockage, so you might not be able to get through a square where the tree trunk is. So between the tile layer and this effect here, we've simulated the site restrictions and the movement restrictions of a forest. So we've done wall controls. Lighting, I think we will just have default daytime, and then we can, if we wanted to run it at night for some reason, we can do the transition to night without having any additional lights. I think at some point, and the point has already arrived, we need to get rid of that disgustingly strong grid. So let's do that now. Change it to 2 and have a I can't remember what I did for the docks. But maybe it will just be have just a grey one. Yeah, we won't really need to see it that strongly because we've got a grid. You know, we can drag ruler, so I don't think we need to see the grid very strongly, but if we look closely we can. That looks much nicer. So I hope you agree that we're getting a nice looking scene here. And now we go into sands. So let's create a sand object, just some ambient sand, I think. Covering everything. We need a source file path, so we'll go to our sands folder. We had the docks before, so we'll just choose a forest sand. Not too loud. Volume easing, no, because it's everywhere, and we don't want it to be constrained by walls. Now with version 12 we could look at muffling effects, but I don't think we need to do that. And then we'll check that we can hear the sounds. So I've got a bit of just some rustling of the trees in the wind, and a little bit of woodpecker and bird noises. We don't need to worry about transitions or anything like that. But the final thing that we need to do is have some kind of representation of where we're going to put the bandits in that ambush. So maybe the best way we can do that is with the drawing tool and have some text. We could have the lead bandit hiding there, say. That's what I'd done before. Let's edit this. Text. So I'll have A, nice big font, maybe 60. Maybe even bigger than that, I think. Don't think we need a fill. Don't think we need a line. Yeah, so we're just seeing an A, and we want it invisible because we don't want the PC seeing A, B and C, the alphabety spaghetti monster. And we've got that, and we'll copy it, and we'll have one there. Change it to B, and we'll have one there, and change it to C, and then we'll just double check, double right click that it's invisible. You can see the red line around it means it's invisible, invisible there. So actually maybe it should be capital C. Oops. That's better. So that's how you can do labeling on maps for traps or monster start locations. So let's see how we're going to fit this into our encounter. Go back to the journal, the copse. If the PCs enter the copse hex, show the image and move the PCs onto the copse ambush scene. Ask them their habitual marching order, etc. So why don't we edit this and add in our image. Got a line there, add in our image. It's going to be, we put it in images, and insert it, and there we are. So that's what we just took a picture of. So we can save that, and then when we're in the journal editor, as we're reading it to the players and reading our tips, we can select this and do show players, and then they're going to get a nice 3D view of the area that they've just entered. In our secret text. So I've written, in an ambush situation that does not lead to, there's a bit of rules here, so we're deciding how we're going to run this ambush. In the ambush situation that does not immediately lead to initiative rolling for combat, those in the ambush are the active creatures, the bandits, and so they make avoid notice checks against the perception DCs of those being ambushed, the PCs. When the PCs are searching in exploration, this is for hidden inanimate objects, not creatures who are actively hiding. So an inanimate object is not the active party, so the PCs are searching for them. But to someone who's avoiding notice, we say they're the active party. So in Pathfinder 2nd edition, we don't have passive perception checks. This is how we get round it. So what would happen is we would have the bandits in their prepared positions marked A, B and C on our map, and they would make an avoid notice check, and we would just say, well, the leader's controlling them, so it's based on his check, he prepared the ambush. And we'd say that would be the leader's stealth skill, and you would give them +4 for greater cover because they're hiding in the trees, and it would be against the PC's perception DCs. I do a sort of homebrew rule that if at least one PC is scouting, all the PCs would get +1 on their perception DC, so making it slightly harder for the bandits to hide. And if the bandits fail to hide from at least one PC, you place the bandits on the scene and ask the players what they wish to do. And because the seek range is 30 feet, we would say that the PCs would start 30 feet away. So the range is a 30-foot cone. So we would say that Maurizio would be, say the bandit there, would be maybe starting there, and they would have the PCs around there. So that's a nice kind of rules-based way of running an encounter rather than it just being random. And the more random it is, the more players have the potential to feel that the GM is just manipulating the odds by suddenly having an encounter where the monsters are behind them or in front of them, or a certain distance away, exactly to suit the monster's missile range, perhaps. So this is a kind of a standardized way of running a combat, in my opinion. If you had an ambush situation where it's going to lead to combat immediately, instead what you can do is, that's the only time when you have sort of opposed checks, when you're rolling for initiative. So the PCs would roll perception probably, unless they were also hiding, in which case they might use avoiding notice, might use stealth, and the bandits would use they'd use stealth but with their +4 greater cover bonus, and then they would go in order, and the stealth checks and the perception checks determine the initiative order. And so what about if you had a situation where the rogue was in a prepared ambush and made a low roll on initiative for low stealth roll for initiative? Well, yeah, they're going to go behind after the players, but the players haven't seen the what they're supposed to be fighting yet, because they're still in cover. So if you get a situation where the DC for the perception check for trying to find the bandits is higher than the roll, than the perception initiative roll of the players, they haven't seen them, but they've still gone ahead in initiative because the bandits rolled very low. In that situation, what I generally do is say, oh, you notice something out of the ordinary, but you can't put your finger on it, or you have a sixth sense that there's an ambush, and the players would have the option to delay, to wait to see what happens, or they might take an action to make a seek check, specifically a spot check, to see if they could specifically find out the location of what maybe got their hackles up. And then that would take an action, maybe to spot one of the rogues, and then they might take another action to point it out to the rest of the party, and then you would put the rogue on the map as hidden rather than invisible. So I think with that, having set up the encounter and a bit of discussion about how we do the tiles, and a bit of discussion at the end about how we would set up a situation where one group is hiding from another, next time would be a good time to actually put the bandits in our game to run the encounter, and maybe we'll run the encounter ourselves and see how it actually works. As I said, we're not going to have this combat one where it immediately starts fighting. The rogues are overconfident, and they're going to try and demoralize the PCs, get their money without a fight, or perhaps with a fight. Anyway, thanks very much for watching and listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the transitions between 3 different pieces of software, and look forward to speaking to you next time. Bye.